Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to paint this painting of sweets in watercolor, and you can find a real-time version of this up in Critique Club right now. And if you're watching this before Memorial Day 2023, I've got a sale going on in my Teachable School, 40% off any class you like, and the link and coupon code will be in the video description. I'm going to start off by transferring my drawing to my watercolor paper, and there is a pattern in Critique Club if you want to just transfer that on. And I have wet the background, and I'm loosely putting in some colors. Now, I went really bold with this. This is not the first time I've painted this painting. It's the third time I've painting it. I did it once for a online workshop for Jerry's Artorama in Art of the Carolinas back in 2020 when the world had shut down. And I intended to post this in one of my classes eventually, but I lost the footage. So I thought, you know what? I came across this the other day when I was looking for some artwork for another project I have coming up. And I thought, oh yeah, I forgot about this. I think I'll do this for Critique Club because it was a really fun one. And it's a good example of how you can take a bunch of different reference images and put them together in one painting. And all the reference images came from Unsplash. They should still be there. They might be a little bit hard to hunt down, but I basically just looked at a bunch of different cakes to draw them, and then I just went on from there. So it was a kind of a fusion between looking at reference photos, combining them, and then painting them from imagination. So it's kind of fun to do that once in a while, and it pushes you out of your comfort zone, especially if you're a realistic painter and you rely heavily on reference images. And that's something I'm trying to expand upon. I'm trying to use my imagination more. I'm trying to use my lived experience more and come up with paintings that are a little bit more unique. Now, I think reference images definitely have their place because we use them to be able to see how things really look, to see how light interacts on different surfaces, to see how things look at different angles. But there comes a point where they become a crutch. And I think that for me, they've become a crutch. And while I do love to look at reference photos to get that visual information, get that detail, I really need to start using my imagination more and taking a lot more of my own reference photos, which I have been doing over the last few years. But, it's very tempting. It's very tempting to rely on reference photos from Unsplash and Pixabay and other sites like that. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I want to make sure I also use my own imagination a little bit more and not rely on the reference images as a crutch. Use them as an informational tool, but break myself away from relying on them too much. It's kind of like taking those training wheels off your bike. You got to do it sometimes if you really want to learn how to ride. And yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm taking off the training wheels a little bit. So I'm still working wet into wet here. I basically want to get some paint everywhere on the paper. I know I'm going to go in with white gouache at the end. I'll be using Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, which I actually have in a half pan on my palette. You can see there in the middle channel. And that re-wets really well. And there's a couple different things I recommend if you want to have a dried down white in your palette. One would be the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. It re-wets excellently and it's extremely opaque. So even if you thin it down, it's still very, very opaque. I also recommend the Inktense block in Antique White or the Inktense paint pan in Antique White. Those are both very well re-wettable, easy to re-wet, white, opaque products that you can add to your watercolors if you want to bring in that opaque element. It's not going to make your paints gouache. I mean, gouache paint's a little bit different. You can add these opaque whites to your watercolor and make a gouache, but it's going to be very pastel. If the way they formulate gouache to still be vibrant and be opaque is by not grinding the pigment so firmly and using pigments that tend to be a little bit more opaque to begin with. So there is a difference. But if you just want to add some opaque media, you just want to get a little bit of opacity in the watercolors you already have, that's a really good option. I also find that the Inktense blocks and Inktense pan paints are more opaque than regular watercolors. Not quite as opaque as gouache, but kind of like in between. So if you have those, then that would be a great way to kind of test the waters without investing in a set of gouache. Now, I did just recently purchase I purchased 4 tubes of the five tubes of the Daniel Smith Artist Quality Gouache. I have a few tubes of M. Graham, and I purchased them to see the difference between the cheaper and the more expensive gouaches, because honestly, in the past, I haven't found a huge difference between the high quality student grade and artist grade gouache, but I'm going to give these a try because I've heard such great things about them, and see if I can really find a huge difference there, because the price is the biggest difference there would be the price. You could get 4 Daniel Smith gouaches for the same, 15 ml tubes for the same price. You would get, 60 of another brand that's twice as big. So I know there's going to be some quality differences there, but I'm just wondering as to how big that difference is. So at this point, I'm just kind of like putting another layer on. I've let the background dry, and I'm just kind of going on with another layer of transparent watercolor. The brand of watercolors I'm using are Turner watercolors, and I have both my collection, which I don't think is still available, my signature set with Jerry's Autorama. I don't think they still have that available, but it's some basic colors, and then yeah, I'm just layering them up. I like the Turner watercolors. I find them to be kind of one of those really good getting what you pay for type things, but I feel like you're getting more than you're paying for with them in a lot of cases, although the prices have gone up. But in general, I've purchased most of my Turner paints for, if they've been open stock, for between $4 and $7 for a 15 ml tube. And for that price, I think they're really good. I don't think the quality is quite as good as, say, M. Graham, but darn, it's good. I'd say it's as good as Holbein, as good as Shinhan, PWC. It's also very similar in feeling because they are a Japanese watercolor, so they do kind of have that very similar feeling to Holbein, although I prefer the Turner to Holbein. I feel like you can find more single pigment colors, and they have a little bit more personality than the Holbein paints do, but that's just my opinion. Everybody's different, and I've only tried like 18 of the Holbein colors, so I'm certainly not an expert on Holbein paint. So, take it with a grain of salt, basically. Somebody that's used all the colors of both brands is going to be able to give you a much better assertion of that. All we can do as artists is speak from our personal experience. All we can do as reviewers on YouTube is speak from our personal experience. So if you're looking to buy Holbein paint, you can look at my review, but that's only going to be showing the set of 18. You could go look at Dr. Otto Kano's review. I think she probably has all the colors. You're going to get much different viewpoints there. So obviously shop around, especially if you're going to be diving into a more expensive paint like Holbein. Holbein used to be a steal in the United States, but it's gotten much pricier. Although I did see Amazon has their 60 set for around $130, which is quite a good deal in my opinion. I've been very tempted by it. I haven't bit the bullet, but I've been very tempted. I'm just like, you know what? You didn't love the 18 set. What makes you think you're going to love the 120 set? Sometimes I get the want monster kind of breaks loose from his cage if he sees a really good deal. My want monster's male. Apparently, if he sees a really good deal, but I've been managing to quell the want monster by going through what I have and realizing that I'm going to really have to step it up if I'm going to use my watercolors in my lifetime. And that's a scary thought. That's a really depressing thought. So yeah, I need to get on the stick. I need to get my skates on if I'm going to use those up, as they say. I'm still layering up. This took me probably about 2 hours, I would say, maybe a little under, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours in like actual painting time. I painted it over the course of a day because what I like to do is I like to take breaks and I like to have different projects going at once. So while I'm waiting for that background to dry, I'll go and work on something else. While I'm waiting for, another layer to dry, I'll go work on something else. So I don't have to just kind of sit there with a heat gun. It also gives me some perspective. So if I'm setting a painting down and not working on it for 20 minutes, half an hour, it gives my brain a chance to clear. It gives my eyes a chance to reset. Especially if I'm going to a completely different task where I'll be looking off more into the distance, because I find that even with my current prescription, which is brand new and accurate, my eyes get tired. And if I'm staring at a painting for an hour, I'm going to start losing my perspective on that. My eyes will get tired. I can overwork things because I think that they're not right, when really they're fine. I just need to go do something else. I need to go. A lot of times it's actually doing housework. I'll go a vacuum. I'll go I don't know, go pick some stuff up. I'll go do things where I'm looking at different focal points. Maybe I'll go for a walk. That's a really good one too, because if you're going for a walk, you're staring off into the distance, and that's giving your eyes a chance to reset. There's a rule called the 20-20-20 rule, where it's you take every 20 minutes, you stare off 20 feet into the distance for 20 seconds, and that will give your eyes a chance to like kind of refocus, reset, freshen up. And if I'm just sitting there working on a piece of artwork, I forget to do that. So having a big wet background that needs to dry can really help me with that, getting that perspective and resetting my eyes a bit. So it also strengthens your eyes, and it's just good for your health, especially if you get outside. And even if it's cold and in the winter, just getting outside for a 10-minute walk can really improve your artwork, because for when you're letting some sunlight in, they say that our eyesight has changed as humans. We have way more nearsighted people now, and especially children, than there were 20 years ago. And it's because we're not outside as much. We're not focusing off into the distance. We're looking at things too close to our face, and it's elongating our eyeballs. So it's like, man, yeah, get it. If that's not an excuse to get outside and, throw the Frisbee for the dog, or go for a walk, or, do something outdoors or in a different environment for a while, I don't know what is. Getting that, getting the things away from your face for a little bit of time is certainly helpful. And you'll see that this process is basically layering. It's layering, It's here I'm putting some sprinkles on the cake. That layer is dry. I'm going in, and every layer you add a little bit more realism. You add a little bit more polish. You add a little bit more refinement. And a lot of times, if I'm not happy with a painting, and I think I illustrated this in the live stream I did earlier this week, where we finished up some paintings done in plein air. We finished them up in the studio. A lot of it is just it's not done yet. I was frustrated with a painting, but I'd only worked on it for 15 minutes out in the landscape. Well, of course I was frustrated. What do I expect for 15 minutes? Do I expect a masterpiece? No. But I was kind of expecting a little bit more than what I had, I guess. I was expecting a freshness that wasn't there. I wasn't loving it. I wasn't happy with it. But a lot of cases when we're not happy with our work, it's just that we're not done yet, and we need to add some more time, add some more layers, put the work in, and you will get it there. It might not be a masterpiece. It might not be your favorite painting ever, but you certainly can improve it. So it's time. It's both time away from your painting, and it's time in your painting. You need both of those times, those perspectives in your artwork, in my opinion, to make it lovely. I'm not saying you need to spend 40 hours on a piece. You certainly can. And those artworks that I see my friends do, that they spend 40 hours on a colored pencil piece, they are exquisite. Don't get me wrong. But that might not be your jam. That might not be what you want to do. And that's totally fine as well. That's totally relevant. You got to do what your painting needs to be done to your level of doneness, to get your vision across. Maybe you're not a realistic painter. Maybe you're an abstract artist. Still, you're going to find that those layers, that time, is going to help your work. It's going to make it more intricate. It's going to make it more finished. It's going to make it more interesting generally than just, throwing some paint at the paper, throwing down some collage elements and calling it a day. The intention that you put in your art is what makes it you. Sometimes you get a happy accident. It's like, wow, that looks really cool, and I really didn't do anything. Wow, yay me. That's not the normal way things go, folks. It just isn't. There's got to be some intention there. Otherwise, an elephant with a paintbrush can do the same thing. So I know you can look at somebody's painting and say, why is it so popular? It looks like a 5-year-old did it. But there's usually something there and that's the artist's intention. So you might not be able to put your finger on that je ne sais quoi that makes that painting pop, that makes it interesting, that makes it speak to you. You may think, well, it's just abstract, but there's probably something there that has the spirit of the artist in it that you can't put your finger on. How many ways can I say that? I don't know. Maybe I'll think of 5 different more ways. I'm going in with some more opaque highlights. I've switched to a smaller brush, and I will switch to a smaller brush purposely at the end because I don't want to overwork it. It's really hard to overwork it with a teeny brush. And this brush actually is probably ready to be retired. It's like a size 1, but it's been blunted by use. So I probably need to go with switch it up for a nicer brush. But it's getting the job done. I'm putting in some of these bolder highlights, and I will switch to a pen if I need those really, really tiny slivers of highlight, or little tiny little white dots, things like that. So, just kind of keep that in mind. If you're not getting the detail that you want from a brush that's always served you in the past, those small round brushes do wear down over time. The larger round brushes will last you a lifetime in most cases. They just can take a lot more abuse, a lot more use and wear and tear, but the smaller ones will blunt down after a while. So just keep in mind you may have to replace them. Luckily, they're much cheaper than your larger brushes, so that's good. It doesn't cost a lot to get a fine-tipped round like faux squirrel brush. Even if you go for the real fur brushes, they're generally not as expensive because there's less in them. So now I'm using a Uniball Signo Broad. That's my favorite white gel pen. I like it because it's very reliable. It gives me a bold, opaque line. I find I generally don't need to get more detail than what this pen will put out. Some people do. That's fine. We're all different people, but I like these just for the longevity I get out of the pen. There's been no white gel pens that I've used that have lasted as long as these. I get them in a 3-pack for about $6 over on Amazon, and I open them one at a time. Or I'll keep one in my travel set and one at home. But in general, that's what I use. And there you have it. Now, I did add some white spatters of the gouache afterwards, and that's how that looks. Here it is before the spatters, just for a little bit of perspective. And you're going to see here is the original that, this is the one we just did, but here I'll show you the original one that inspired this painting. It's a little bit lighter and more airy, and I'm not sure which one I like best. Different attitudes, different moods, I'll paint things a little bit differently. Like I said, you can find this up in Critique Club right now. There'll be a link in the video description, as well as a link to my Memorial Day sale that is going through the end of May 2023. There's a coupon code in the video description. It's 40% off MEM23 if you are watching this off YouTube and you can't find that coupon code, and it's good through the end of May 2023. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked it. And until next time, happy crafting.